Alright, welcome to a slideshow called What is Summarizing and How Do I Avoid It? This is for classes being taught by Tom Green at Northern Essex Community College. And it's a slideshow about how in your papers, if you've gotten comments back from you that say that you're summarizing too much and you're not sure what I mean by that, you can use this slideshow to figure out what it is and how to avoid it. Alright, so step one, what is summarizing? Summarizing is writing only about what happens in the story or restating what the readings say, whatever they are. So something happened in the story, you tell me what happened in the story, and you stop at that. One of the characteristics of summarizing is that it does not go beyond what anybody can read in the book. Everybody picks up the book, they all look at it, they all see the same thing. Summarizing is what's actually in the story or in the article that you're looking at. Also, summarizing typically does not include your own opinion. You're not talking about what you think or what you feel or your interpretations. You're stopping just with the things that are happening in the book that anybody can see. And finally, the reason why I discourage you from summarizing in your papers is that summarizing does not require much thinking. You're not really going beyond just what's there on the surface of the paper and the surface of the text and telling me what happens, and I really want more than that. Alright, so here's an example to illustrate what I'm talking about. Suppose you read the story from Grimm's Fairy Tales collection called Little Red Cap. You may also know it as Little Red Riding Hood, which is an alternate title for the same story. Alright, and then you wrote me a paper about Little Red Cap, and your paper goes like this. Little Red Cap is the story of a girl who always wears a red cap. One day her mother sends her out to the grandmother's house to deliver a basket of cake and wine. Along the way she meets a wolf, and so on and so forth, and you get to the end of the story, where she's rescued by the huntsman, or not, depending on which version you're looking at. And you have basically retold the story of Little Red Cap, and then you hand that as a paper, and I hand it back and say, this is no good because you're just summarizing. The Grimm brothers already wrote down the story of Little Red Cap. When you rewrite it in a paper for a class, you are not really doing any thinking or any writing. You're just relating what they have already done. So you have to go beyond just saying what happened in the story or what happened in the article that you're reading and talk about other kinds of things. So how do you avoid summarizing? You should think while you're writing as though you are talking to someone who has also already read the same thing that you read. I have read all of the stuff that I assign you to read in classes. So when you write me a paper that tells me what you read, remember I already read it too, so you're telling me stuff that I already know. In your papers I want things that I don't know. I want to hear about things that you think that I don't know that you think. And so just summarizing is kind of like, for example, if you had just watched the movie Titanic with a friend of yours, and you were talking about the movie afterwards, and you say to your friend, hey, Titanic is the story about a boat that sinks, and there's an Irish immigrant boy and a rich girl, and blah, and you basically retell the story of Titanic. You would never do that. That's completely irrational. The person was just sitting there with you and also saw the movie. So think about how I feel when I'm reading a paper and you retell me a story or tell me exactly what was in an article, and I go, well, wait a minute, I already read this. I want to hear about the additional stuff, the stuff after that. Alright, there are two caveats that go with the idea of summarizing. The first one is that sometimes when I tell people they can't summarize, one major mistake they'll make is they go to what I call enhanced summary. That's something like, for example, if you're writing an enhanced summary of Little Red Cap, it would go, I really like the part of Little Red Cap where the mother sends the girl to her grandmother's house. Then I was scared when the wolf came out of the woods, and blah, blah, blah. I was happy when the huntsman came along. Alright, this is really just still telling me what happened in the story and then adding a little bit of your own superficial emotional response. You really need to go deeper than this. This is just barely more than summary. So avoid the enhanced summary. I need more opinion, more ideas. And then the second caveat, sometimes you do have to say what is happening in the story or say what is going on in the article or what the original author says so that you can then move on to say something else. For example, it is okay and necessary to say something like, in the part of Little Red Cap where the wolf jumps out. Now that's the beginning of a sentence, and yes, technically that is summary, but it's very brief, and really the purpose of that is to tell me which part of the story you're talking about, and that's okay. As long as you continue going and talk about your opinion, your ideas, you take that extra step and say, that part of the story made me think about the way the wolf is a symbol of the masculine patriarchy, and then you go and develop a nice couple of paragraphs about how the wolf is a symbol of patriarchy. Summary that locates the reader in a particular part of the story or article is necessary and even desirable. But the ideas and opinions must go beyond mere summary or superficial response. It's just a way to locate the reader so that you can go on and talk about your ideas, which is what the non-summary writing paper should look like. So remember, here's the takeaway from this presentation. If it's something that anybody can read in the text, then it's summary. You need to go beyond that. You have to go beyond just telling what happens in the story or article, write about your thoughts, your opinions, your ideas, and then you will not be summarizing.